This video is mainly Mr. MadDino's opinion. If you have different feelings towards this film, he is just fine with that. With that being said, here's the intro.
I love Disney. I know. It's such a surprise, right? So many people can get behind their properties, can't they? From a teenage cult following for a Goofy movie, to listening to Let It Go and We Don't Talk About Bruno on loop. We love the content that Disney presents us with. But why do we like them? The answer is simple. Ever since they made their very first movie with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in 1936, the industry of filmmaking had been changed forever due to the film itself being known as the first animated movie in history. Following that, they began to adapt other famous fairy tales to the big screen with their ever-changing animation styles. Movies such as Pinocchio, Sleeping Beauty, and Frozen have been adapted from popular stories and have become iconic pieces of film throughout the ages. So much so that the marketing for said movies has become some of the most recognizable pieces of merchandise in any store you go to. Be it just a random thrift store or just a more recognizable location like Target. There's a very good chance you'll see some clothes or toys in the Frozen category. And of course, there may or may not be some familiar faces from the past centuries, and Disney's Pinocchio may be one of them. Disney's take on Pinocchio in 1940 made Carlo Collodi's story more child-friendly, with a bit of a dark side to it, while also retaining its heartwarming message of courage, honesty, and selflessness. There's also the song When You Wish Upon a Star, which was so iconic that it became the theme for Disney's own logo. Sleeping Beauty had more clean animation and introduced us to Maleficent, one of their most iconic villains. Frozen? Let it go. Enough said. Yes, indeed. These takes on the classic tales have become so iconic, in fact, that they are referenced in non-Disney properties. You know that Disney's made a fairy tale popular if it's referenced in movies like Shrek, or even Puss in Boots. But then again, that also brings me to my next question. What does it take to make a good movie? Now, that's the big question in cinema, isn't it? It's a very tough question to ask, and even more difficult to answer. Well, let me tell you my own answer. To make a good movie, you have to make a good character that you can relate to. You have to give them personality and make them as likable as possible. There must also be an arc that they have to go through, resolving a personal conflict or flaw that they might have. These characters also do not necessarily have to be perfect in any way. No. Because, you see, if that's the case, if your character is written without any flaws at all, then said character will be the subject of controversy and heavily criticized by the public. They won't have any character development to them, and they'll just go through with their goals without any conflict whatsoever. Flaws help make a character more relatable to fans. Give them issues that a person in real life may face, and have them overcome them in a way that they, the fans, could do themselves. Loss, insecurity, self-loathing. Those are all things that can make a good character, because those are negative traits that a person may find in themselves. People make mistakes. Doesn't that mean that their role models should make them as well? There also has to be good writing involved as well. It has to be a story that is easy enough to understand, which is one of the reasons movies such as Lightyear failed in terms of likability. If you're going to adapt a famous book to the big screen, that's fine. You're allowed to make changes to the material, but only if they are executed well, if they make sense. But what does this have to do with the movie I'm looking at today? Well, the reason I bring all this up before I look at this movie is that it tells a story that is not from any books from the past. That's right. This movie is one of those rare films in Disney's lineup that is set in an original setting. Not a fairy tale setting that you would usually get. Not based on a mostly unknown book like 101 Dalmatians or The Fox and the Hound, or even The Aristocats. This movie is an original story. Not that it's good or anything, I mean, holy mother of mercy, is this movie lame. And I don't mean that metaphorically or rhetorically or poetically or theoretically or in any other fancy way. This movie is lame straight up. Strange World is the latest addition to the animated film collection that we've all grown up with. Premiering in November 2022, the movie was not the box office hit that Disney was known for. It ended up earning $73 million against a budget of $135 to $180 million before being sent to Disney+. Yeesh, that's a bit of a loss there, and that's even considering the success of their last movie, both financially, critically, and commercially. Encanto won the award for Best Animated Feature in 2022, but that was the only mention that Disney Animation would get for a year, I can assure you. And this is the first box office bomb Disney's ever endured since Meet the Robinsons in 2007. But unlike that movie, Strange World is mediocre, if not just bad. This movie failed so miserably, I don't know how long it'll be before the company gets back on its feet. But what was the actual issue with this film? What caused it to be so unsuccessful at the box office and with fans? 2 words. Bad marketing. Since the beginning, there was little to no promotion for Strange World. When I was a kid, I remember a lot of creative marketing for movies and shows. On Cartoon Network in the early 2000s, when I was a little kid, I remember there being some old channel bumpers between commercials with the characters all together in a live-action city going about their daily lives and interacting. Professor Utonium losing his keys to his car. You get Dexter from Dexter's Laboratory and Number 1 from Codename Kids Next Door trying to help him out. And they also did some interesting bumpers and promos for special events on the channel as well, like the week-long Invaded event or Har Har Thursdays. That's a really creative way to market your cartoons. A little kid could watch the city bumpers and see Ed and Nettie without even watching their show, and become so curious and want to watch it for the very first time. Disney even did some of that for some of their movies too, mostly by Pixar. I remember Up and Toy Story 3 being marketed like crazy. There were short films about Up before the movie even came out, and Toy Story 3 merchandise everywhere you looked in clothes stores mostly. But as mentioned before, Frozen also hopped aboard this train after its commercial success in 2013. Too bad they didn't do any of that with Strange World. But I remember the first trailer for the movie getting released sometime at the start of last summer and was like, meh. Yeah, not even the first trailer looked all that interesting. To its credit, I saw a little bit of unique quality to it. It was paying homage to vintage movies such as King Kong or Godzilla in black and white. That was only in the beginning. They just totally dropped it. They did the same thing they did in the Pinocchio remake, where they were introducing a very interesting new fact that Geppetto lost a son, and they never bring it up again. When the trailer began, it seemed like they were going to pay homage to some old nostalgic adventure films such as King Kong, or even some of the old Godzilla films. To be honest, that would be pretty fun to watch. Let's face it, guys. Giant monsters are awesome. And there is a giant monster in this movie. Spoilers, by the way, but do any of you really care? I don't think so, because no one really cares for Strange World. But back to the monster. There is a monster in the movie, but it doesn't even show up until the third act. There's no real build-up to the monster, just a dumb story about generational trauma between a father and son. Why couldn't they do what Godzilla in 1998 did, where they built up the actual appearance of the monster without even showing it? Sure, the CGI on the monster stank like a communal bathroom at college, but that's actually a pretty good marketing scheme. Back then, in 1998, there were buses that said, "His foot is as big as this bus," and billboards that said, "His head is this big." That's pretty clever. Granted, I wasn't born yet. I was born in 2000. This was from 1998, so I couldn't see this for myself. But I haven't seen marketing like this since Toy Story 3 and Cars 2. And they actually did pretty well. But after that first trailer, most of the marketing for Strange World was completely and simply kaput. I mean, they hardly had any promos for this movie at all. You never guessed that this movie was part of the animated canon at all. Raya and the Last Dragon, an underrated movie from the animated canon, and quite frankly, an overhated one, had good marketing. Sure, people complained about Sisu's design, but they could also get behind the good animation and interesting story. It also helped that dozens of media channels pushed out promos and trailers for the movie as well. Seriously, you guys, lay off this movie. And Sisu's design. And Sisu herself. Jeez, why do you guys hate on this girl? And yes, we even got some of that in the beginning of the movie itself. But no, we got ourselves a by-the-numbers, stale-of-bread story about a father and son. I mean, seriously, a parental bonding movie? Seriously? How boring could Disney get? It's obvious what they're trying to do. They're trying to ride the coattails of Encanto. Encanto didn't need to hammer the message that family is the greatest thing ever, because it had a good story aside from that. Mirabel Madrigal was a good protagonist because she wasn't overpowered and perfect like most female characters are written these days. She was insecure, lonely, and an outcast. She interacted with other people, unlike Quasimodo, but in a way, she was truly alone. She was the only one in the family that didn't receive a gift. And in the end, she still didn't get one. That's a pretty good subversion of the classic conflict resolution. It proves that she doesn't need a power in the end, as she's the glue keeping her family together. Same with Quasimodo. Sure, he was upset that Esmeralda didn't like him that way, but he put that aside once he realized that it wasn't the love of one person that he really desired, but the acceptance of the people he admired from afar, which he longed for his entire life. That's why Encanto and Hunchback are so great, because they subvert the usual guy gets girl or person gets power ending. It proves that you don't have to achieve your goal to find happiness. Happiness is being with those you love. And the gargoyles. The characters in Strange World, however, are nowhere near as complex and likable as the ones in Encanto. Instead, however, they just make them like characters from any generic adventure film. The ones that aren't even remotely unique. They have to fit the cliques of any adventure movie that you see. Yeah, a company that is well known for creating iconic fleshed out characters who are three-dimensional and likable, they're just average cardboard cutouts of of all the fantastic movies we've come to love. They just want to fit into the holes of the puzzle of the movie that the writers lazily made for them. Let's admit it, you guys. You don't give a feather or a fig about these characters. Let's take a look at arguably the worst character in this, Jaeger Clade. Jaeger Clade is apparently a famous explorer in the land of Avalonia. How do I know this? Because that's the first thing they tell us in the opening of the movie. That's why. We get an opening made in both 2D and 3D animation explaining that Jaeger Clade is a famous explorer and is known for being brave and courageous. Ignoring the fact that the 2D animation looks unique and stylized, this intro is a prime example of one of the greatest things to avoid in filmmaking. Tell, don't show. We're only told that Jaeger is an idolized member of the community, but we aren't exactly shown why that is. Where did all that start? What exactly was his first mission? What does he do for a living? What is his family life like? Yeah, that's a bunch of details we aren't exactly shown in the span of 10 minutes. Also, can we talk about the opening scene itself? Of all the openings to a Disney movie that we've gotten in the past 30 years, this has got to be the most bottom of the barrel opening in any Disney movie I have ever seen. Circle of Life had that grand score that let us get a glimpse of how all animals in the Pride Lands respect the royal family that will eat them. Aladdin had that song that painted the desert as a land of mystery and danger, all the while deleting the lyric about cutting off your ear if they don't like your face. Yeah, that wouldn't fly today. Other movies like Zootopia and Moana had openings where the main character was introduced and the lore of the world was explained. Here, we get nothing like that at all. One thing that this movie fails miserably at is its character development, or even establishing its characters at all. The first 10 minutes don't give us much to work with in comparison to some of Disney's past films. They just start throwing stuff at us and expect us to know everything about the characters and world itself. By the way, you know you're in trouble when the first thing they do after the logo is show us the movie's title. Can we talk about that for a minute? Some of the most brilliant scenes in animation can be the title of the film itself. After the Circle of Life sequence in The Lion King, we get the title of the film with a righteous beat of a drum to end the song, while also getting an amazing tracking shot of a crowd of animals lining up at Pride Rock. And then there's the title in just red font in a black background. The Little Mermaid took time letting us get to know Prince Eric, while also bringing up the fact that King Triton is stirring in the water. We also get to see what a fish looks like in the water in comparison to how unexpressive they look out of the surface. Then we get the title sequence as we venture through the mysterious depths of the ocean, going through different parts of the mysterious sea, before seeing the mythical humanoids themselves. And they're no doubt gonna ruin it with that remake coming out soon, but here, nothing! Just the 100th anniversary Disney logo. And boy, oh boy, is that the only good thing in the movie. It's like the writers weren't even trying with this opening. They clearly didn't think highly of this. This logo is wasted on this movie. They couldn't just delay the movie, could they? To write a better script. After the Oscar they won with Encanto, Disney probably thought, what the heck? People love us for our last movie. They won't mind if we just rush out the title in the first 5 seconds. Nobody'll hate that. Will they? Where were we? Right. Back to the first 10 minutes. We see Jaeger and Searcher's team finding a source called Pando and having an out-of-nowhere argument about how Jaeger values his end goal of exploring the other side of the mountain. Why does he want to explore the other side of the mountain? Is there a reason he wants to go there? Is it because other clades have tried to do so but failed? Never explained. Instead, we watch as Jaeger storms off into the snow, abandoning his son and unseen wife in comparison of his self-pride. Yeah, if you haven't noticed already, this movie has stopped trying to be a Disney film and started being more like a film from the DC Extended Universe. I say that because in some of those films, they try to push these characters and their morals out before we even get the chance to know anything about them. There was plenty of potential for Ben Affleck's Batman. They could have put him against an adaptation of Mr. Freeze, played by James Brolin. But nope, it had to be Batman v Superman. I hate that movie. Here, we get the same thing. We know little to nothing about the relationship between Jaeger and Searcher. We don't know what their lives are like outside of the world of adventure. All we know about them is that Jaeger is proud and full of himself and does what he wants done, regardless of what other people think, and Searcher is a farmer. Yeah, Searcher doesn't have that much characterization other than being a farmer who's a fish out of water when it comes to adventure. Seriously, why are we supposed to care that Jaeger disappears like that? We know little to nothing about their characters other than what they're supposed to be. And this is just too in your face in the first 10 minutes. The animation in itself is pretty basic. You can tell that some of the character models have kind of the same feel of those in Encanto. I know, I keep mentioning Encanto, but that movie's animation was vibrant, exciting, and visibly smooth. This is just some generic carbon-based copy of that, with none of the effort in it whatsoever. The ones who wrote this movie probably thought that just using the color pink for their strange world automatically makes it a vibrant piece of animation. Okay, here's a little Animation 101. I'm not an artist, but I know a thing or two about good animation. So, here we go. When you want to make good animation, you have to make something that flows with the story itself. Encanto did this, Raya did this, and Arlo the Alligator Boy, a criminally overlooked movie on Netflix, used the pop-up book aesthetic to its advantage when entering the city setting and used a different style for most of the film. I recommend that movie, by the way, but this movie, Strange World, has nothing interesting to offer you. Like, at all. Like I said in my Puss in Boots review, you see one 3D animated movie from Disney, you've seen them all. Oh yeah, all this time I've been pointing out how much this movie doesn't work in comparison to its predecessors, and I haven't even talked about the movie itself. As mentioned before, Jaeger Clade and his son Searcher have a falling out, and he disappears into the snow for 25 years. We follow Searcher as he and a rescue team venture to the other side of the mountain when their home's energy source begins to die. And wouldn't you know it, they find his dad. The rest of the movie is spent trying to expand on Searcher and Jaeger's relationship. Now, to return to my previous complaints, Jaeger Clade is unique. I'm not saying he's a good character or anything, he bites like a piranha. However, he is a unique case for Disney. In the long line of Disney fathers we've had over the years, Jaeger is something very interesting. Jaeger has the honor of being Disney's very first deadbeat dad. Yeah, I made a whole mess about how Jaeger and Searcher's argument was too in your face, but none of that preludes the fact that Jaeger had just straight up left his family behind for 20 years? 25 if you're counting, and why did he run off, you ask? Because his son didn't agree with him. Does that sound like a likable character to you? He's shown to be the most selfish father in Disney history. He's only out to fulfill his own ends. And when I say this, I mean go on his own stupid adventures. It's a pretty conflicting message in my book. To some, it may be justifiable. To me, not so much. To those who think it is justifiable, they're the same kind of people who side with Mulan 2, one of the most frustrating animated direct-to-video movies ever made. And maybe one of the most frustrating animated movies as well. Because need I remind you that Jaeger not only had a son to look after in case he continued to get in trouble, not to mention guide him on the straight and narrow, but he also had a wife back home. Yeah, who the heck is his wife? What is their relationship? I would be a lot more invested in Disney's first animated family drama than this. Why couldn't they have just done what The Greatest Showman did? We get to see P.T. Barnum as a child. We get to see him meet his future wife. And then we get a whole montage of them growing up, having kids, starting a new life. That's just a beautiful scene right there, no matter what people say. But no, instead, we got the watered-down version of Avatar, mixing up with a smattering of Treasure Planet, a pinch of Encanto, and a dash of The Lion King. All those ingredients are small because they are far cries from the movies themselves. Nothing from those movies carry on to this film, which is another weakness. Also, speaking of his wife, it's also worth mentioning that in Jaeger's absence, the wife moved on and married another man that Jaeger apparently knew. The movie treats it as a throwaway line for people to laugh at, but me? I think it's like something from the stinking Star Wars sequels. Yeah, remember those dumpster fires? Where they would introduce something cool like Snoke or the death of a legacy character, and completely chicken out with it by either having those cool characters take the back seat, or completely and inexplicably rethinking their deaths altogether. At the end of the movie, spoilers by the way, Jaeger reunites with his wife and her new husband, and it looks like she's easily forgiven him. Not me! You want to know what I do? Hey Jaeger, you want to know who else is late for dinner?
Good Lord.
Okay. The movie would have redeemed itself if it went that route. Hey, your wife leaving you is a throwaway line, so why can't we have a joke like that? Also, I've never even said a word about the Strange World itself besides its animation. It stinks. Actually, that's a bit harsh. It's just mediocre. It's underwhelming. As mentioned before, the movie thinks that just by making yourself one color, you've made a new and amazing kind of world that could captivate and astonish the mind. The weird thing is, this time it's not even an alien planet. It all takes place on Earth. Granted, the Strange World is inside of a giant turtle-like monster, but that just opens up another flood of questions. Where did that giant alien creature come from? What's it really called? Are there more of them? Could a whole fleet of them invade Earth? Meridian looks like Dolores! Sorry, that came out of nowhere. It's just from day one I've noticed that Meridian Clade looks an awful lot like a certain someone with excellent hearing. Geez, another implication that Disney hardly even tried with this one. Why complain about the problems with Raya when this movie can't even be bothered to make good original designs for their characters? Anyways, indeed, the titular location isn't all that interesting to look at. And that goes for the creatures in it as well. Honestly, I don't see any investment to be found in this landscape. You'd think it was an alien planet just by looking at it. But as mentioned before, it's inside of a giant monster. You're probably inside of its pancreas. They hardly explain that much about it, other than being inside the giant thing, so that's kind of my theory of where it all takes place. But wait a minute. Doesn't that make all those animals of the strange world a kind of parasite? And then let's take a look at this guy here. This guy, Splat, the main animal sidekick, is just a faceless amoeba-looking thing. For a long time, Disney animals have been some of Disney's most marketable characters. You get toys, t-shirts, bath toys, etc. They have the most marketable designs of any animal put on film. Splat? A pillow, I guess? Kinda suitcase? Yeah, I don't really see how much Splat merchandise is gonna sell. And, one more thing I just have to ask. Why does the gosh darn dog have 3 legs? It's bad enough that he looks like Max from The Little Mermaid, but why did they have to inexplicably give him 3 legs? If you're going to have a character, even an animal character, that has a missing limb or distinguishing body part, at least provide a little backstory for it. Anna from Frozen had that white streak in her hair because we saw the traumatic event that led to this little flaw, and Elsa's self-fear. And we know Elsa struggles, and we know Anna struggles as well. We see how she's become lonely while Elsa's been isolated from society. That scene where after the funeral for the king and queen, Anna beseeching Elsa to come out of her room so they can talk, so they can grieve together, but Elsa, being as emotionally broken as she was, obviously wants to go out and comfort her younger sister as much as she wants to comfort her, but still can't because she knows her powers are still an issue, and she knows that she would see that white streak in Anna's hair again. A painful reminder of that fateful night it all started. That's the power of an injury. That's the power of show don't tell. We see the struggles. We see the heartbreak. We see the events that have left these characters so broken and scarred. Not just on the outside, but on the inside as well. But we never get any reason as to why Legend has a missing leg. How much do you guys want to bet that in the next Disney film, there's not going to be a villain? Because, Lord forbid, we have a big, meanie bad guy. Anyways, in conclusion, I did not like this movie. Of all the mediocre content pushed onto Disney Plus in 2022, this is probably the most forgettable. It's right up there next to Night at the Museum, Kamuna Rises Again. Good lord, was that movie annoying. This movie is an easy 4 out of 10. For once, I give a movie a bad grade. As mentioned in the beginning, if you guys like this movie, that's totally fine. I just can't see myself defending it. It's not Velma bad, it's just forgettable. But yes, that wraps up my video reviewing Strange World. Remember to leave a comment, like this video, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next review. Bye-bye.